All right, it is going live. Let's see if I can get everything pulled up on my screens. I have hopefully learned a second valuable lesson. One, keep the live stream short. That's what we learned last week. What I learned last night in the second live stream is I need to make sure that I remember to swap my video screens around so that when I'm talking about my screen, you can actually see my screen. So that's the goal for tonight. Alright, so while the ad plays on my phone and I wait to get into my Twitch chat room, I will just hang out here and hope that some friends show up from the web design class. Oh, look at that. We have 3 viewers already. Excellent. Hey, and I recognize some of those names. Welcome to the live stream. Let me reply to a few people in the chat room. I am excited for tonight. It's going to be different than the other live streams. I have no slides tonight. Instead, I have planned for tonight going over chapter 4, the exercise that you build along the way. We're going to be building the Black Goose Bistro HTML web page, and we are going to do it. We're going to do it live. We're going to do it live. I'm going to show you how I learned to build web pages and code HTML long time ago, and it's how many people still code today. And it's not using a fancy tool, it's using a program that comes with your computer. I wanted to demo it from a Windows machine tonight because Notepad is where I learned to code HTML. But unfortunately, I found that remote controlling the PC that I have access to through my work's VPN connection does not work with Twitch. So what I'm going to show you tonight then is how to use a program called TextEdit. And if you have a Mac, TextEdit is on your Mac. It's called TextEdit. And if you're searching for it, you can hit Command Space to open up Spotlight and search for TextEdit to open it up. And everything that I'm showing you can be done on a PC. I took some screenshots. You know, it's like a cooking show. I've got a couple things already taken care of that I'm going to show you along the way. I wanted to show you this screenshot. If you're on Windows 10 or even an older version of Windows, you can hit the start button in the corner and just start typing Notepad, and it's going to find a really old kind of dusty program called Notepad that is not very fancy at all. It is a big white window. It looks a lot like this, and you can type in it, and it's not like Microsoft Word. There is no way to bold any text or change the font size in different sections. It's all plain text. Like, we're going retro with this. And that allows you to write HTML code inside of it. So that's what I'm going to do, only with the TextEdit program. Now, unfortunately, on the Mac, they have tried to make TextEdit more advanced over the years. So by default, it's going to eat our HTML code and try to show a real well-formatted document, and that is not going to work for my demo tonight. So let me get this ready for you. Underneath the preferences on a Mac in TextEdit, you can go back to plain text, turn off all the fancy features. We don't want it to do any conversion of characters. And then I think the textbook even shows under open and save that there's an option to display HTML files as HTML code instead of formatted text. That becomes super important. And when saving, don't add the .txt extension to plain text files. Okay, so I unchecked a bunch of boxes on this side, all down here in options. I selected plain text, and I made sure that we're not having to eat our HTML code and we're not having to append an extension that we don't want. So I'm going to close this window, and now if I go up to File, New, I have the equivalent of Notepad on the PC right here. It's very, very plain. And what I am going to do is start out by entering content. This is exercise 4.1 on page 53. And I've made your life a lot easier. You could sit here and type all of that in, but I went to the textbook website. I downloaded the starter file. I posted it in Moodle, and it should be listed right here on the chapter 4 section. Along the way, we're going to need the blackgoose.png file. That's an image. I think it's a little logo. And there's also this exercise 4.1 index file. If you click on those links, they'll download. And when you download them, you can save them to your desktop. And I'm actually just going to drag this on top of my text edit window. And that opened it up in a new window. I'm actually going to select everything. If you love shortcuts like I do, you can actually just hit Command A or Control A to select all, and then Command C or Control C to copy. And then I'm just going to paste that in here. So what have I done? I saved, 10 minutes of typing here. This is the web page that we're going to build. Now it's going to look extremely plain at first. And it's possibly not even going to look like this. I've got these new lines in here, but when I save this as an HTML file and I don't have any HTML code in there, I want to see what that looks like in a browser. So let's go to File, Save, and I am going to go to my desktop here, make a new folder called Chapter 4 Bkish. I assume you will make a folder for each of your assignments that you're working on. It's a good practice to get into. And the directions on page 53 tell us to save it as index.html. While I'm doing this, I should mention, if my audio sounds low, let me know and I can remove my microphone. I tried to find a better place so that it doesn't catch my clicking on the keyboard tonight. So let me know how it sounds in the chat room. So I am going to save that as index.html. I still have it open in TextEdit here, but what we're going to do now is go open that file. I saved it on my desktop right here, and it's this index file. I'm going to right click on it or control click on it, and I'm going to open that up in my web browser of choice. If you double click on your PC, I'm assuming it's going to open up in Chrome or your default browser. In my case, I wanted to open it up in Chrome because that's what I have open today. I'm actually using the new Chrome. It's got those new curved tabs. They're growing on me. Actually, my favorite feature of the new Chrome is this new URL bar. It's much simplified. I think I really like how it looks. There's more space between the entries. Anyways, this is our HTML page, and something doesn't look quite right. It looks even more plain, if that were possible, than what I had coded up in TextEdit. And as you can probably guess, that's because I didn't put any HTML tags in here. So I didn't separate any of the paragraphs, add any headings. I just wrote the plain text. And so if I were to publish this on the web, the Black Goose Bistro patrons would be very disappointed with this web page. But believe it or not, that is the end of exercise 4.1, and we're ready to move forward. And so there's a brief tangent at this point where our author shows us a starter template, all the HTML that you're ever going to have to type. And what I'd like to do is actually build that up myself the long way in front of you. So if I were to start a new HTML document, and I'm going to pull up my cheat sheet over here on my other screen as I type here, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 or 6 tags that are the bare necessities of any HTML page. I'm just double checking the chat room here to see if there were any questions so far as I'm doing this. We got 8 people in here. That's awesome. We got quite a few students in here tonight. Yeah, no questions in the chat room, so we're good to continue. So let me type those in here and explain them as I go. So the first thing that you actually write at the top of any HTML file isn't a tag at all. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it. This is not an HTML tag. This is actually just a marker at the beginning of an HTML file that tells the browser what is about to come. Spoiler alert, is HTML. So our author just indicates that this is something that every HTML document has to have. So please trust me on that. Let's actually get into real tags. There is a tag called HTML. It opens and it closes. So the opening tag starts with a less than sign, ends with a greater than sign. It marks where the HTML document starts, and the closing tag indicates where it ends. Nothing too fancy about this, but notice how closing tags have a / in them. The /, just as a FYI, is the key that has the question mark on it, on our North American keyboards. And I want to point out that it's the same / that appears in URLs. So when you're in this class, I don't think there's a case where I will ever ask you to enter a \. All / from here on out. So that's our first tag, HTML. And then our document takes a quick separation really quickly between two areas inside the document. The next tag is the head tag, and it opens and closes. And then it has a sibling, one that comes alongside of it usually. It opens up and it closes, and that's the body. So here are a couple new tags for you. Every web page has to have a head, and it has to have a body. That sounds like an anatomy class. But really, the body is where all the content of our web page goes. So everything that you see in the browser window, like if I'm pulling up Moodle here, everything that you're seeing on the screen, this is all likely in the body. Now, every web page still has to have this head section because valuable information about the web page is put in there. What goes in there? Well, the most important tag is the title. My page title is what I'm going to write here. The title tags are required because this is what will show up in a couple places in a browser. It shows up in the browser tabs up here at the top. These are the titles of all of the web pages I have open right now. So for Moodle, there's this assignment page. I've got our textbook open over here from Red Shelf. So it says Learning Web Design. I've got a cool website open I'm going to mention in a little bit over here. All of these are the titles of my HTML documents. So it's required for you to provide that. Now these titles show up in a couple other cool places. If you were to ever add a bookmark, like if I want to bookmark this page, that page title is what is used to give you a name for your bookmark. It also shows up when you try to print a page, when you copy and paste a link and send it to someone, like in Twitter. I think when you, let me see what else. I said when you bookmark it, when you email it, and when you print it, I think it shows up on the page that prints out. So title is very important. It shows up in several places. Every HTML document that you make has to have the title. There's one other piece of information that we might take for granted that should go in the head, and that's a special meta tag that contains metadata. And the value that you want to tell it is what characters to expect on the page. And for now, we need to all memorize that we need to put this meta tag in here with a character set of UTF-8. There is a nice tangent in our textbook on page 57 about Unicode. And what I love about Unicode is it's so encompassing that it even includes emoji. And emoji have exploded in popularity in our lives right now. So I actually linked to a podcast episode about emoji and how they get made and how they connect characters to those beautiful pictures that we send each other. And that is my recommended podcast of the week. So we have talked about the bare necessities. What goes inside the head, what goes in the title. If you want to make this more readable, you can indent or space in the things to show the relationship between the opening tag. It's very common for developers to have all the tags that go together be indented the same way. So because head opens here and closes here, they're indented at the same level. And then the contents of the head element are actually indented further, tabbed underneath. That's very common. If I save this as a web page and open it up, there would be nothing on the page. There's no body. All that you would see in the title is my page title. So what goes inside a body? Well, all of the content goes here. So in that few minutes, we built a very bland web page, and that's essentially what we're going to try to do with the Black Goose Bistro page. We're going to add the HTML tags to make it a real website. But if you've been watching now for just a few minutes, you're probably already tired of me pulling tags out of the air and typing them in here. And I don't want web design to be like that. So I have introduced this as HTML the hard way. I would love to show you HTML a less hard way. I would love to show you HTML the easy way. And so I'm going to introduce you to a program called Atom. And if you are on the front page of our course in the upper right hand corner, right over here. If I scroll down a little bit so you can see the logo, I have the Atom text editor. If you click that link, you are going to be bounced to a software package that has been created by GitHub, who I'm sure you've heard of. If you haven't heard of them, we will talk about them more later. Atom is a free text editor that is super powered. It is not nearly as plain as TextEdit or as Notepad. It has a lot of features that I want to show you. So I hope that you will download this to your personal computer to use. It should not require too much for you to install. It's kind of a big program, but it's worth it. So let it download, get it installed. I am going to open it up right now. And when you open it up, it might have a welcome screen. All that I would recommend you do is go to File, New File. And you'll notice right away one of the best features of Atom is that it lets you have multiple files open as tabs, just like a web page. And it's not a big white screen. So already there's an improvement here. It's a more inviting editing environment because there's a dark theme by default so that it's not going to blind your eyeballs when you're coding late at night. And what I want to show you for my first trick is how to change this from just a plain text page, very boring, to something that gets some color, that enables a couple super cool tricks. If you go down to the plain text words in the bottom right hand corner of the window, you can actually click on that and you can take a look at all of the programming languages that Atom is able to recognize. And instead of scrolling through here, I'm just going to type HTML. And the first item on the list is HTML, the regular plain Jane HTML. And I'm going to hit enter. And what you're going to see is that now in the bottom right hand corner it says that I'm in the HTML mode. And when I'm in HTML mode and I start typing, cool things start to happen. I'm not going to actually start typing a tag. Like, I'm not going to type a less than sign. I'm going to start typing the name of the tag that I want to create. So I'm going to start creating an HTML tag. And all I've typed is the word HTML. And this little autocomplete menu shows up underneath the letters that I typed, HTML. At this point, you can actually just hit tab to autocomplete. And everything that I showed you in the previous part of this video where I typed in those tags automatically, Atom just typed in for me. This is HTML the easy way. I honestly don't have these tags memorized, the requirements. I let Atom or other text editors fill it in for me. And what's cool is when I hit tab, it automatically moved my cursor, you can see it blinking on the screen here, over the language section in case I wanted to change it. If I hit tab again, it moves me to the direction if I wanted to change it from left to left or something. If I keep hitting tab, it's going to advance my cursor to the next logical place that I might want to edit. And in this case, it puts my cursor blinking right between the two title tags, the opening and closing, so I can quickly add my page title here, and I can hit tab, and it advances my cursor down into the body, and this is where I can start writing body content. So one of the first things that we're going to do in the second exercise is put in an H1 because it's going to be the biggest, boldest text on the page. So I'm going to start typing H1. I'm not typing the less than sign. I'm just typing H1, and I'm hitting tab, and it puts both tags in, moves my cursor between the H1 tags, and this is my page title, and I hit tab again, and it moves my cursor outside of the H1 tags, and I can hit return. And now let's make a paragraph, so I'm just going to hit P and hit tab. This is a paragraph. Oops. And I'm going to move my cursor around here. Now, as you can tell, it's actually more than just knowing P goes to a P tag. It's actually like a search interface. So if I want to add something like an image, which we're going to do in an upcoming exercise, I can start typing IM, and you'll see that these are the three options that I can arrow up and down between for image, import, and iframe. In this case, I'm probably going to do the image, and it then prompts me to fill in the next piece of information that I need for the image tag, which is where's the file I want to show. So this is going to be super powerful. You do not have to memorize any images. Worst case scenario, if you want to build something, you're going to Google search for what the tag name is and start typing it into Atom, and it will autocomplete. So I'm taking a look at the chat room. Someone said that they've actually changed their Windows environment to use a dark theme so that it doesn't blind themselves at night, and I can relate to that. And oh, another student said that Atom is cool, and I have to tell you, Atom is cool. I love it, and my web students have been using it now for 3 years, and it has not let us down. If anything, it's gotten better and faster along the way. I have one more trick that I want to show you before we get back to the exercise. There are going to be times when you are trying to mock something up on a web page and you just need some sample text. And you may have seen some gibberish floating around in screenshots called lorem ipsum. In fact, if I Google search for lorem ipsum, you can read about the history of lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum is just placeholder text, random text. It looks like a language, but it really isn't. It's just gibberish, but it looks like real words. It comes built into Atom. So if I just start typing lorem, like if I want to add a new paragraph here, and I start typing lorem and I hit tab, it puts in a lot of fake words in here for me, and I can just close my tag and move on, and I have a fake paragraph of text as a placeholder. So we've talked about how to start a document in Atom. Just to review that, you can go to a new file. I recommend hitting that plain text button in the bottom right, changing to HTML, start typing, and let the tab button autocomplete for you. In a matter of seconds, you can build a web page. So please practice that with Atom as soon as possible, because you're going to need that the rest of this class. And as you can imagine, this is going to make quick work of the rest of our exercises. So I am hopeful that we can do that in the next couple minutes. I'm going to pause just for a minute to see if there are any questions in the chat room. We got quite a few people in here tonight. What do you all think about Atom? Someone's saying they made a custom random site to put in your bistro file using Atom. Cool. Yeah, Atom makes it really easy to build little web pages really fast. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead to page 60, and what I'm going to try to do on my screen here is jump ahead to page 60 in our textbook. And the first thing that we're going to do is define text elements. So remember how I created this plain index.html file in TextEdit? I'm done with TextEdit. I'm closing that thing. We're done. Closing out. I'm going to quit TextEdit. We don't need it anymore. Let's go into Atom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open a new window. And I am going to open. File open. Come on. Wait for my computer to spin up here. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to open up that folder that I made. And I'm going to double click on index here. So when you open up a file with .html in it, it will actually automatically go into HTML mode for you, which is pretty nice. And it opens up the folder along the left-hand side here. So if you have a lot of HTML files that you're building in a website, they'll all be listed. It makes it really easy to open a bunch of files up at once. You'll see that Atom supports having multiple panes. So you can actually have, oops, I didn't mean to click on that. You can actually have code open on this left-hand side. Like I can drag this tab over to here, and then I could open up other code on the right-hand side. If you don't need to have the two tabs, you can actually close out of them and just focus on the one file for now. If I am reading this chapter right, all that they're having us do in here is add some of the text elements. And so they tell us that this Black Goose Bistro should actually be within H1 tags. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to just type H1 here, and then I'm going to cut and paste the Black Goose Bistro into the H1 tags. Notice how quick that was? Then they say that there are three other headings that aren't the page title, so they aren't the biggest, but they're the next level down in size, but they're all equally important, and that's the restaurant. So you could type in those H2 tags, or you could just type in H2, cut, and paste that in, and do the same thing down here. H2, paste it in, and location and hours, I believe. Paste that in there. The next thing that they ask us to do is put the paragraphs within paragraph tags. And for this, I'm actually going to showcase another handy feature. If you select a whole line, and you can actually start your cursor out at the beginning of the line and hold Shift, and on a Mac it's the Command key. Shift, Command, and then the right arrow key will take you all the way to the end of that line and select the whole line at once. Then I think you're able to hit another key command, which is Shift, Command, W? Oh, it didn't work. Look at that, I messed it up. I'm thinking of a different editor. This is what happens when you code live, everybody. Let me open this back up in Atom. Try to recover where I was at. Let's see if I lost much of my work here. Alright, I did Shift Command W. I think it must be Control Shift W. Oh, I didn't do what I wanted. Well, somewhere there's a key command to add tags surrounding a line, but we're going to just go back to typing the opening and closing tags. And even if you're manually typing this, if you start typing a tag, it will auto-complete it. And you can just hit Tab to finish the tag out. So we've added one paragraph. Let's add a few other paragraphs in here. This is a paragraph, so we're going to add that in here. And if I'm reading this right, they say, you have fun. They want us to add some emphasis around the "will handle the cooking." So that's actually the M tag, the EM tag for emphasis. I think someone added that into our HTML tag definition database that you can read more about. I'm just going to cut what they had us write and paste it in here. So now we have a paragraph, and inside of there we're emphasizing a particular sentence. And now they ask us just to save this document. So sometimes the textbook will have you save copies of the file so you can save your work along the way. I'm just going to save right over top of this index file. And I want to introduce you to the workflow of millions of developers before you, saving in your text editor and going back to your browser and hitting refresh. So if you haven't already opened up your web page in your browser, it looks like I closed mine by accident. You can open up the folder, open up your web page in your browser of choice. And I wish I kept that before screen up. This is what our web page looks like now. You can see Black Goose Bistro is not only at the top and on its own line, but it also is bolder and larger than all the other headings on the page because it's an H1. You'll see that the H2s are all the same size. Paragraphs have added spacing above and below each paragraph, and then that emphasis tag has essentially italicized it to add emphasis. So that is the end of exercise 2. So we've shown you tags. The next thing that the author wants to show you is tags that take additional information, that take attributes. So the best example of this is actually the image tag. So we're going to take this H1 and we want to put our official restaurant logo in here. So they are actually going to have us kind of separate this out, and you'll see that Atom, if you start hitting enter, is going to auto indent tags for you, which is super nice. And we're just going to add an image. So I'm going to start typing IMG. It wants to propose this image tag. I'm going to hit enter or tab, and it puts in the tag, and it takes me to this attribute. So opening and closing tags, opening tags can take these additional properties. Notice how it's inside of the less than and greater than brackets. An attribute is a word, and if you want to give it a value, you put an equal sign and you surround the value that you want to give it inside of these quotation marks. You didn't have to memorize any of that. Atom did it for you. Now we're just going to supply the information. We want to include a very specific image, and I think it's the image that I downloaded earlier today. So I think I have it here on my desktop. Oh, I don't have it on my desktop. Whew. I was not as prepared as I thought. Let us go back to Moodle. I'm going to download this Black Goose file. Oh, it's right here in my downloads folder. So I'm going to move that from my downloads folder and put it in here. It's very important that the image exists in the same location as our index.html file. I am going to take this file name by clicking on it and copying the name. And then I'm going to come back into Atom, and I'm going to paste the name of that file right inside of the source. Source is abbreviated SRC, but that's essentially the way to get to that image. You'll learn that that source doesn't have to just be the name of a file. It could be the URL to an image. It could be a relative path to a different folder. But that has to point to an image, like a PNG. There's a chapter later on in our book that we're going to cover later that will cover a bunch of different image formats, but for now they've supplied us with what we need. This alt text, the next attribute in here, it's actually an accessibility feature to provide a text description of the image that would be read aloud by a screen reader if someone was having this web page read aloud to them. But it would also show this text, this alternate text, if the page was still loading and the image either wasn't found or is taking too long to load. So I'm just going to type in logo like they recommend. And then the other thing that they have us do besides use this image tag is add in a line break. So most tags have an opening and a closing version of the tag to make an element. Some tags don't need an opening and closing tag. They just need one tag. And that is true for the image, and that is true for the line break. There's really no way to have the beginning of a line break and the end of a line break, or the beginning of an image and then put stuff inside of the image and then have an ending image. So these are tags that are essentially empty or auto-closing, I've seen them called in other places. So we've got the image here, we've got a line break. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to Chrome and hit refresh. And look at that, we have a logo. Just checking the chat room. I don't see any other questions. I want to show exercise 4.5 because this is where we're going to put it all together. We are missing all the important HTML tags, like the starting tags at the beginning. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to select all. So Command A. I'm going to cut that. And let's put in all the missing HTML tags. We probably want to put a title on this page of Black Goose Bistro. I'm going to paste in all those wonderful tags that are in my clipboard. And I'm going to hit save. And if we come back and refresh the page, not much really changed. I think some of the padding changed on the outside of the page. But now I feel better that we have the opening and closing HTML tags. And more importantly, it gives us the space to put the next part of exercise 4, which is a basic style sheet. We're going to learn about CSS in a couple weeks and really dive deep into it. But for now, they provide us with some sample styles that are going to take our web page to the next level. So what they ask us to do is add in the head. This is where extra information about the page goes, including the styles that it's going to use. We're going to add a style tag. So I'm just going to type style and hit tab. It puts the tags that I need. And then they're going to have you type in some CSS that is not going to make a lot of sense right now. If you read through what they have you type in, you're going to see that it's actually not that complicated. And in fact, Atom is going to color code it and auto-complete some of it for you as you type it. I'm just going to paste in the final product because, it's a cooking show and I'm done typing live code for now. I'm going to hit save, and once you have those styles in there and you refresh the web page, look what just a sprinkling of CSS can do to align that text center, make it capitalized. I didn't have to retype it in capitals. It changed the colors of the headings. It added this line or border at the bottom. It's looking like a real restaurant website. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is what happens when you make typos, because it's inevitably going to happen as you're typing code. The good news is browsers are often very forgiving. So if you forget to close a tag, a browser is going to try to show the page anyways. Unfortunately, still missing a single character can change how the web page displays. If you forget to close an H2 and you instead decide to start a second H2 and you save that, look what happens to the web page. This whole paragraph has suddenly become an H2 because when the browser is reading the source code, it saw that this was in an H2, and then it saw that another H2 started, and it never closed them properly. You'll see that Chrome tries to figure out later on and get back on the right page when it sees a closing H2. But from browser to browser, that might be different when you open up a malformed or an HTML page with errors in it. So what you really want to do is not write any errors to begin with, but you're bound to. So if something's not rendering right or you can't find an error, I want to introduce you to an HTML validator, which will actually inspect your document. It will actually count up the opening tags and compare them to the number of closing tags, and it will try to give you tips on how to improve your document. Now, some of those tips might be in the form of error messages that don't make a lot of sense, but what I thought was interesting is our textbook introduces a new validator that I have not used before. So what I'm going to do is select all of this document and copy it. And I did a quick Google search for HTML5 validator in Google, and the top hit is this validator.nu. This is actually the tool that the chapter 4 recommends you use. You can change the mode from an address to a file upload and then go find your file and upload it. Or you can use the text field like I am, and you can just paste in all of your code and click the validate button. And if everything was typed correctly, you'll get a green summary of everything being good. If there was a typo, let me put my typo back in here. Rerun this validator. It's going to tell me that a heading cannot be the child of another heading. And so this will then point out that there's this another H2 starting, and it will hopefully tell you what line it's on. So line 36, notice how Adam tells you exactly the line numbers. This is going to pinpoint where the error is, and you can realize, oh hey, I forgot to close that tag. Save it, run it through the validator again. Now sometimes one error results in like 3 errors later on. So what I recommend is actually reading from top to bottom and trying to fix the errors as you go along the way. So like I said, this was a tool I had not used. Actually, the second result for the validator is the W3C validator. This is actually a tool provided by the people that make the standards for the web, the W3C, and they have the same like functionality. You can give it a URL, a file to check by uploading, or you can directly paste in the code. They have a check button that you can run, and it will try to point out the exact same type of errors down below. So 2 tools. They're HTML validators. I recommend that you run your source code through there if you want some help double checking it. You can run the HTML troubleshooting exercises that I gave you through this if you're really stumped on where the errors are, and they should help pinpoint where to look. It's a valuable tool, and I wanted to make sure you all knew about it. So to recap, because we're just past the half-hour mark, we have covered how to make HTML pages the hard way, which you do not have to do. Instead, we have introduced you to a tool called Atom, which is going to change your life. We have coded all the exercises from Chapter 4 very quickly with Atom. It made short work out of it. And you can continue on to Chapter 5, where you will learn a slew of new tags, and Atom is going to help you auto-complete them along the way. And you're going to start building web pages with content. So that's it for me. I'm going to see if there's any questions in the chat room. I will be back live again tomorrow to talk about the troubleshooting activity. I would like to actually go through some of those slides together and try to talk about why some of those errors are in there, because they're actually all inspired by real life events. I have made just about any HTML error you can possibly imagine, and I wanted to share a few of the common ones that I've seen along the way. So, someone in the chat room saying that they wish they would have known about Atom sooner. I'm imagining that you must have done your homework with Notepad, and that's okay. I've had one student in my history who told me honestly that they preferred using Notepad to code, and that's cool by me. Most people really like Atom, and I do too. So okay, a few people are saying they wish they had known about Atom sooner. You know, to be fair, we're introducing it in the 2nd week, so if I wait until week 3, then maybe you guys would have quit on me, right? All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. I will see you all again soon.